Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. Consider this your vitamin or supplement for your mind, your heart, and your soul. Wherever you download Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, this podcast, would you please consider subscribing and then leaving a rating and a review? It would be greatly appreciated if you could help with this matter. Today, let's talk about relationships. We are all in relationships. Relationships are the pure gold of life. To say they are important is a vast understatement. All of us today have had relationships that have taken the wrong turn. Relationships that we thought were so strong and people to whom we felt so close, and then something happened. Sometimes we know what happened, and sometimes we cannot quite figure out exactly what happened. But the relationship has been fractured, and in some cases, they've been completely severed. I'm going to guess today, if you really think about it, some of your greatest joys come from relationships that you're in, and some of your greatest heartache comes from relationships that have soured, and relationships that maybe you're not even in anymore. So if relationships are so important, how do we make sure that the relationships that we are in, especially as leaders, thrive and they have real substance to them, that they're more than just a surface? Many of our relationships, and even many of the people that we call friends, are more correctly acquaintances. We've not spent the time and invested the capital of time and energy into making them really solid, strong relationships. But there are some important things that we must do to be in good relationships, or to be having strong relationships in our lives. Now, I am by nature an extrovert, and I believe that many folks will understand that extroverts have a leg up. They have an advantage in building relationships because we're so chatty and like to talk, and we'll find people who we can talk to, and that's the problem. It's people we can talk to, not particularly talk with. So if you're more introverted and you think you might just skip ahead to another episode, it has been my observation that at many places, and many of the introverts that I've known and had on staff with me were actually some of the stronger people in relationships, because the introvert is a little more quiet, a little more introspective, a little more thoughtful. They have developed really great listening skills, and at times have really developed the skill of being empathetic and giving really good, solid advice. So wherever we are in our relationships, it really doesn't matter. We can all learn and come to some understanding of what it takes to really be in a good relationship. If you think back in your life of the people that are your go-to people when you have a question, when you have something you want to share and you know that they will keep it in confidence, there are people that you go to. Well, I've already mentioned one of the reasons that we continually go to those folks is we know they have our best interest at heart. We know they won't just tell us what we need to hear, what we want to hear rather, but they'll tell us what we need to hear. But they'll do it in a kind way, and in a way that lets us know they're not trying to be punitive or to hurt us, but trying to help us get better and to be better. And so you can learn from the people that you go to what are the social skills that lead to relational health. And as you look back in your life, when you really start taking stock of what has happened and what you've been involved with, it won't be the awards that you've won or the projects you brought in on time and under budget. It'll really be the interpersonal relationships that prove to be the real dynamic in your life. Many times that when we come in as leaders, we think that we have been called to make change and to bring change to an organization. But it's very difficult to change an organization and to change a culture. And if you don't take time to build relationships, your changing and being the change agent is going to come up really very short. because relationships really are the portal through which real, true change takes place. If you think about it, think of all the ways you have changed. And change many times has sort of a negative context. Well, I've changed in this and I've changed that. But as you receive better information, as things change and the circumstances and situations you find yourself in changes, as you've learned, as you've seen something in a different light, as you have received more information, or you've listened to others that you really have confidence in, the true change comes in an organization. An organization cannot change. It's only the people in the organization who can change. And none of us are going to change easily if we're not in relationship with people. For you see, you may be wanting me to change and I'm not really gung-ho on it. And I'm really sort of questioning some of it, if this is really as valuable as you are describing it. But if I'm in relationship with you, and I know your heart, and I know you're a good person, and I know you're looking out for me, and you're looking out for others, and we have built that trust, I'll follow you. I will follow you even into uncomfortable places. Not because I really want to go to that uncomfortable place, but you have built a relationship with me in such a way that I have confidence, I trust your heart, and I'm more willing to follow. Many people in organizations have their plans when they come in of how they're going to change things and how this change will be for the better. But before you can even get down that road, you better start working on building relationships with your team, your friends, those people who are going to be affected by the change. Get feedback, explain your heart, explain why you're wanting to do this. Sometimes when you're on the receiving end of change, it just seems like someone is trying to change things to build their resume, or that someone is trying to implement change in our organization just so they can go up the ladder, and they really don't care about me and they don't really care about my organization. They're trying to build a reputation. Whenever people feel that way, more times than not, it is because they don't have a relationship with the person trying to implement the change. They don't really know what you're about and what drives you and what is driving and compelling you to seek to implement this kind of change. But you'll never be successful. You'll never see real lasting change implemented unless it's implemented through people. Now, I said earlier that relationships cause our greatest joys and also bring about our greatest disappointments. And let me give you a reason why many people kind of wash their hands and move away from building strong relationships. First of all, if you're going to build relationships with people, it's very demanding. You cannot build relationships in a microwave. We kind of live in a microwave culture that says if I can just stick this in a microwave, put it on for a minute or two or three, and then all of my problems will be solved. If you're going to build relationships, you're going to have to do the heavy lifting and the hard work of putting in the time and investing in the people's lives. And people are demanding. The time is demanding. The other thing about relationships that you have to remember, many relationships are quite fragile. They're like a garden. They have to be tended. And people aren't always going to respond as we think they should respond. And not everyone's going to be open to being in relationship with us. And you can pour your heart and life into a relationship and still have someone call your character into question. Well, just because a relationship that you're in proved to be fragile and it was fractured, don't then paint with a broad brush, well, that's just how every relationship is, because relationships are complex. People are not computer programs that you just enter the code and you have it figured out. You can't ever figure out people. I used to say as a younger leader, I believe now I have heard it all. But nearly every day of my life, I hear something that I think, well, I'm glad I didn't say I've heard it all, because this is certainly something that I never heard before. So though relationships are demanding and fragile and complex, they are still the building blocks of life. And no true change is ever going to happen except through the portal of relationships. So what does it actually require to be in relationship with people? It requires diligence. Remember, I mentioned a moment ago, it's going to require an investment of time, but you have to keep after it. You can't spend 20 minutes with someone today and not touch base with them for 5 years and think that you're in relationship. You're going to have to be diligent. It's work. You're going to have to keep at it. It's going to take determination. Not much happens in life until we become determined. Until we make up our mind, we're going to do this. You can take whatever it is in life that needs to be done. You're not going to get it done until you make up your mind, I am determined to see this through. If you're going to be in relationships, it requires wisdom. You can't handle everyone like everyone else. And when you're in a relationship, you need to ask God for wisdom, how to handle these situations, how to connect with this particular person, how to answer their questions, how to be of assistance with them. The last one that I'm going to share is, if you're going to be in relationships, it takes intentionality. The position that I'm in right at the moment, my wife and I noticed that if we're going to have really meaningful and lasting relationships with people, we just don't see people in the natural rhythm like we used to do, weekly and bi-weekly. If we want to make time to be with people and to speak with people, we have to be really, really intentional. We have to make appointments. We have to say, let's go out to eat on such and such a day. Hey, can we get together? Relationships do not just happen. You have to plan for it to happen. But leader, makes no difference what you're leading. Your leadership will never be effective until you learn how to build, hold on to, and keep lasting relationships. And whatever organization you're leading today, my goal for you is, why don't you start building some relationships with people you're not in relationship with right now? Let them see your heart and you find out about them. It will be a situation where you will learn from each other, and you'll be amazed looking back from the future to where we are today, the change that's taken place in your life and their life because you were intentional about building that relationship. You've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. Wherever you downloaded this episode, would you please consider subscribing and leaving a rating and a review? Remember, leader, you're doing better than you think you are. You are making a difference. Go out and build strong relationships with your family, your friends, and the people you lead. Have a good and great day, and we'll talk to you soon.